Welcome to the channel, gang. I would say welcome back, but this is my first Marvel Snap video, so yeah, just welcome. Yeah, no fancy intro, no fancy outro. We ain't got time for that. We gotta get you to infinite. That's what you're here for. That's why you click the video. So I mean, let's look at it. Let's talk about it. 107. So today is actually the 23rd of November. So I actually got infinite a few days ago on Saturday the 19th. It was the first time going infinite. I climbed from rank 50 to 100 because I'm not a beta player. I'm not an early access player. In fact, I'm not even a day one player because I didn't even know the game was out and downloaded it maybe 3 days after launch. Climbed all the way to 87. Had a really busy day on the last day of the season. I was hoping to get to 90 so that I wouldn't go back to 50, but hey, things happen. So went back to 50 at the start of the season and climbed my way to infinite on the 19th. So a little over a week into the season, maybe 10 days into the season, I was infinite. And yeah, so let's talk about the reality of infinite, because if you're on YouTube, I'm going to assume you want to be infinite. Otherwise, you don't care about playing good cards and good decks and how to climb properly, and you wouldn't click this video. Because the reality is, if you click this video, you're probably not infinite. Because if you are infinite, you don't care. You don't care about climbing infinite because you're there, right? So let's talk about a few different things. Let's talk about my personal experience. Because I'm not a streamer. I do stream, but I don't make no money. I do it for fun. That's the way it should be. I've got a full-time job with crazy work hours, so I don't even have a consistent streaming schedule. But you can check me out over there in the rare event that I'm streaming when you're online. But so I am not a streamer. I am not a professional card game player or anything like that. I do have experience playing Hearthstone. I used to go to Legend just about every month in that game, but I have not played Hearthstone in a couple years. So this is the first card game in a while. So let's just jump right into it. Why aren't you infinite? Why aren't you going to get to infinite? One of two things: either you're not good enough, you don't understand the snapping mechanics of this game, or two, which is also very likely for a lot of people, you don't have the time. So for me personally, I played somewhere between, on average, 6 to 12 hours of Snap a day, probably the last 5 to 6 days before I got to infinite. Had a lot of time on my hands during that time. So let's just break it down. Let's say you started like I did at rank 50 at the start of the season, and you got 1 cube a game. Let's say you won every game, every opponent you played retreated. If you got 1 cube every match, it would take you 500 matches to go from rank 50 to infinite. No one's going to do that. You are going to lose games. You are going to have RNG wreck you when you should have won. You're going to lose 4 cubes. You're going to lose 8 cubes. So 500 games just if you were to win every time, right? Think about how many games you play. Are you playing that amount of games in a week, in a month? So the first thing is, you just may not have enough time. In fact, I don't plan on ever going to infinite again. I don't like how I feel when I'm being super sweaty and competitive. I do like to be competitive, and if I get infinite again, great. But it's not something I'm going to, go after. And the thing is, it just requires way too much time. I don't have the time to grind it out. I wanted to do it one time. I knew I was close this month. I had the time this month. I've got the fancy card back. If anybody wants to see that I'm an infinite player, I will, I'm gonna throw this bad boy on, and yeah, I've done it. I don't have to do it again. I proved myself I can do it. So do you have the time? The reality is if you're good enough, if you understand how to snap correctly, if you know how to read your players correctly, do you even have the time to put in to get to infinite? It is a grind. I don't know if people are, know Hearthstone, but there was no difference between a rank 5 player and a legend player in my mind, other than how much time did you have to grind these decks. if you're playing a deck that's only got a 55% to a 60% win ratio, and the amount of games that it takes to climb from rank 5 to legend in that game, it was astronomical. And in the early days, you didn't have a wall that you got dropped back down to. I think now when you go to legend, you get dropped back down to rank 5 at the start of the season. Back then, you went all the way back to the beginning and had to climb. It's a grind. And the same thing is about this game. It is going to take you a long time to get to infinite, even if you are a good player and winning consistently. All right. Number 2, you aren't good enough, or you don't understand how to snap correctly. You can have a winning record and be going negative. And that's what was happening to me the first season, because I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand what I was doing until recently, as far as how to snap correctly. And I was winning, I would say maybe 75 to 80% of my games, but my cube total was going backwards. And the same thing can be said in reverse. Technically, you could play 8 games, lose 7 of them, win an 8 cuber on game 8, and be in the positive. And that's something that people need to wrap their mind around. That it's not about, you know, each game, you gotta see it to the end. Because that was something I want to do. Like when I start a match, I want it to go all the way to the end. Maybe I'll win, maybe I'll win. I would say if you're snapping correctly, you will not see a majority of your games finish turn 6. Someone is going to retreat. You might need to be retreating. And so I know I've heard other people talk about each round is like a hand in poker. You know, you don't go all in on a bad hand hoping that you get the 1 card turn that you need to win. You got to look at the probability. Okay, I've got a 75% chance of winning this hand. Let's stay in. Hey, I could win if I draw the 1 card in my deck that I need, and I got 4 cards left in my deck, so I got a 25% chance. Yeah, I think I'm going to snap for 8. No, like, don't do that. You've got to understand that each hand that you play is just that one hand, and that infinite is the goal, right? So let's talk about the next big topic. Pool 1, Pool 2, Pool 3. There's a lot of, you know, things out there saying stay in Pool 1, don't increase your collection level, stay in Pool 2, don't go to Pool 3. If you're in Pool 3 and you don't have a full collection, you can't compete, you're gonna lose. We're gonna talk about my personal experience because I have maybe some personal opinions that aren't with what some people would say and think. So the first season, I think I went from Pool 1 to Pool 2 in maybe 3 days. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm not real sure. And when I went from Pool 1 to Pool 2, I think I was like rank 67. And I went down to 52 without like a win. And most people say, well, see, you should have stayed in Pool 1. First off, I didn't even know what a pool was. I thought a pool was something you went and jumped in and had a good time. I didn't know. And I was like, what is going on? I don't have this card. Like, I'm telling you, when I started this game with no ideas, no clue about what I was doing, I mean it. I didn't watch any streams, any videos. I didn't know what cards were in the game, you know, and I had progressed to Pool 2. And so I was now facing Pool 2 decks with my Pool 1 cards. And I was getting stomped. I was getting destroyed. But I wasn't getting destroyed because they were playing Pool 2 cards and I was playing Pool 1 cards. I was getting destroyed because I didn't know what in the world was coming. You know, I'm looking at the thing going, oh, I got this game won. And then they would throw this card down that I'd never seen before. I'm like, I didn't know this card existed, and I was losing. Once I had a good understanding of what cards were in Pool 2 and what decks were being played, that stopped. I started to win again, right? And I climbed all the way to 87 for the end of the season. So the reality is not that Pool 1 can't beat Pool 2 and Pool 2 can't beat Pool 3. The reality is that when you get thrown into a new pool with a new collection of cards, you are ignorant to what is out there. Pool 1 is very easy. The reason people say, yo, climbed up infinite with Pool 1 is because people are running like 2 decks. It's easy to know if you're winning or losing. And if you're losing, you just leave. And if you're winning, you stay. In Pool 2, eventually you get to that point. People are only running between 3 and 5 decks, right? You got Dino and you've got the Move deck, which I hate. I hate that deck. Right? And so eventually you're like, okay, I know when I'm beat and I know when I'm gonna win, I can stay in. Pool 3 is a little different. because that is where you start to get into this broad range of cards. And what'll happen is someone will get someone like Leader early on in pool 3, and they just place it in any deck, and it's like, okay, I'm winning, and all of a sudden Leader comes out and you lose. So that is the difference, I think. In pool 3, it's a little bit harder to know that you've secured your win, right? You're gonna be kind of stepping into the unknown a little bit more when you're staying in for those 4 cube games or those 8 cube games. But eventually you're gonna start to see patterns and you kind of know what's coming. For me personally, let me tell you what happened. I got to 99.6 on a Thursday, the Thursday before I went infinite. And I lost like 12 cubes. And so I was a little tilted. I was like, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna chill out, I'm gonna get the infinite, just chill. And a card variant that I had been waiting on for a long time finally popped up. This guy popped up. And I had not leveled up my other original Killmonger because I knew this card existed, and when it got in the store, I was gonna buy it and I was gonna level up. So I split it twice, I guess. I went back into another game. And when I went to that game, the person had a fancy avatar and a title, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I lost. And I played about 10 more games with all people with fancy avatars and titles, and realized that there is also a pool between pool 2 and I guess people with full collections. And I had been in that pool, and all of a sudden I was losing and losing and losing. And I went down to, I think, rank 92 and was feeling utterly defeated. And when I finally realized what, you know, cards and decks people were playing, I was kind of able to cut my losses a little bit. But I was having a hard time competing. I had no pool 3 cards that were any. I had Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock was the first pool 3 card I got. So there is something to be said about a pool 2 collection competing against a pool 3. But I will say it's not impossible. What I'm saying is that you are now thrown into the unknown again. It's harder to get people's reads. So people are gonna ask, well, what deck did you climb to infinite with? What'd you climb to infinite with? Well, I climbed to infinite with this ongoing deck. I know you won't be able to see all of it because of how I got it. This ongoing deck, and this control destroy deck, and this blue Marvel deck. Right? I climbed to infinite with all kinds of decks. I tried a move deck. I hate the move deck, but I tried. I climbed from rank 70 to 80 with the move deck. There's too much going on for my brain. I was like, no. We're done with this move deck. I did a lot of Dino, you know, the Moon Girl Dino deck, play the control version of it. But what I can tell you is the deck that I started with on that day of Dino was not the same Dino deck that I ended with on that day. You've got to constantly be changing cards, teching in, you know, hey, do I need to put Shang-Chi in place of Enchantress? Hey, what deck am I seeing more often? What is the reason I keep losing some of these games that I could have easily won? You've got to be able to make the decisions for yourself, you know, and then as you progress into pool 3, you know, you've got to be able to build your own deck. You're not going to net deck your way to infinite, especially not with how the game is currently, because there's no telling when you're going to get the cards from pool 3 that, you know, you want to complete your deck. Now, what deck did I actually climb to infinite with? So after the whole Killmonger debacle, where I assume I am now in the final pool and anything goes, and I'm playing against people with complete collections, I was like, all right, screw it. And I spent somewhere between like 6,000 and 7,000 credits that I had hoarded up. And I eventually drew Sarah. I know it'll be a little harder to see. I drew Sarah, and I was like, okay, I know Sarah's a great card. Let's see what I can build. And ultimately stopped on this. I do not have Mysterio. I do not have Maximus, right? I don't have some of these key cards that are played in some of the, you know, perfect deck. And I was able to climb out of 92 all the way to infinite with some real success. What I will say though is I won a lot of 4 cube games because I think I was playing against people that didn't understand the power of Sarah because they hadn't seen her enough yet. And so they looked at the board and they said, there's no way that this person's going to win. They saw Sarah come out And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. What can he really do on turn 6? And then I was just landsliding on, you know, they just didn't know. The people that did know can look and say, oh yeah, I'm getting the heck out of here, right? And so it's the same thing again, where I talked about part of the reason people lose a lot when they first go into these different pools and they feel like they're at this huge disadvantage is because they don't understand the reads. But once you get to the point where you can continue to win and not lose these, you know, 4 and 8 cube games, right? So this is the deck that I climbed with. I will put the video of the infinite game at the end if you want to watch it. There's no audio. I had turned my mic off. I turned the lights off, so the camera's not real good. I was trying to focus. I just wanted to hit infinite and be done so I could chill. So I will put that at the end of the video. So let's talk about the final thing. We've talked about the time constraints and are you good enough and what decks and the pools and all the things. Let's just talk about snapping, right? Because that is ultimately how you climb or D-rank in this game. How well can you snap, right? So snapping is going to come down to how well can you read your hand and probability of winning and read what your opponent is going to do, right? So let's talk about this. Snapping after on turn 6, when you know you've won, stop. Just stop. If you're snapping on turn 6, I can almost guarantee that you're doing it wrong, okay? When you realize that you've won and you snap, good for you, because you just told your opponent that, hey, in case you don't know, I'm winning. And so what are they gonna do? They're gonna leave, right? The only time that I snap on turn 6 is after someone else snaps on turn 6 and thinks they've beat me, and I know that I've got something in store for them. But also, if somebody snaps on turn 6, that's usually a good indication to me that I'm gonna get the heck out of Dodge because all the pieces just lined up for them and they figured it out, okay? Quit snapping on the final turn. All you're doing is losing cubes. If it's a 1 cube game, and if at the end of the game you're gonna get 2 cubes and you snap on turn 6, you're not getting that second cube because they're gonna leave and you're gonna get 1. So you just lost half of what you could have got, right? I know people do it. Don't snap on turn 1. And people say, well, really, is it bad manners to be snapping on turn 1? No, because you can like look at your hand and go, okay, yeah, I'm probably gonna win. I have all the pieces I need, right? And you snap. But again, the reason I don't think you should be doing that is because if someone snaps me on turn 1, it's one of two things. I know they just snap every game, or they're looking at their hand going, oh yeah, I got everything I need, I'm gonna snap. So that tells me I need to leave, right? If on turn 1 somebody snaps me, nothing's been played, and I'm playing against a player that's infinite, they got the infinite card back, or they got the fancy titles, and I know they've been playing the game long enough, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave, all right? I think that the perfect time to snap is after you see the 3rd location and you see your hand. Snap then. That is where I got most of my 4 cubes because I was able to look at my hand and go, yeah, I think I'm gonna be able to put this together by the end of the game. But if by turn 6 things have taken a turn for the worse, leave. Yes, it sucks losing a 4 cubes, but it's way better than losing 8 cubes. Don't think that because you snapped and then something embarrassing happened that you have to stay. You don't have to stay. You get to leave, right? You know, if you're not a streamer, they're not coming to your channel to make fun of you for doing something dumb. Just leave. Cut your losses and leave. I think you can snap on turn 2 if the first 2 locations are good and you're sitting with Scarlet Witch in your hand, knowing that if something unfavorable pops up on location 3, that you can change it, right? But snapping on turn 1 and snapping on turn 6, or snapping as soon as your power gain has been made apparent, you know, is it X Academy that flips a card? X Academy flips them a hood for -2 and flips you over a Magneto for 12, and you snap, they're gone. They're leaving, okay? They're leaving. So you've got to understand how to snap. And I can tell you that snapping when both people know that you're winning is not how you get cubes. You've got to kind of bait people into staying, or, you know, you snap turn 2 or snap turn 3. when it doesn't look like a landslide. So they do stay that extra turn, and then you make your power apparent, like, okay, well, now I'm leaving. You got that extra cube. That is how you progress. That's how you get to infinite. That's how you don't play 10,000 games in a season, right? You wanna get as many 2 and 4 and 8 cubes as you can. And I'm telling you, if you snap on turn 6 or every time this landslide on the board happens in your favor, you're not getting extra cubes, and in fact, you're probably losing extra cubes. So that's my 2 cents. That's how I'm saying. I have rambled on long enough. I know that this may not be the most informative. I'm not telling you what decks to play or this, that, and the other, but this is just some random dude that's not some professional streamer or gamer that was able to climb to infinite with what I think is pretty good rate, you know, 10 days into the season, starting at rank 50, not 70. And, you know, just my personal experience. And I hope that this at least opens people's eyes to the reality of, can you get to infinite? Not because you're not good enough, but maybe you just don't have the time. And you know what? If you never get to infinite, big deal. Play this game for fun. That's why I'm probably never going to infinite again. I did not like how I felt. I don't like being all competitive and sweaty 24/7. I want to play other decks, and I feel like if I'm trying to get to infinite, I need to play very specific decks that have very consistent win ratios for me. And I want to play other things. I want to play my fancy Carnage that I have. I want to play my Destroy deck. Do what is fun. We play games for fun. Play this game for fun. If you're able to go to infinite having fun, great. If you can only get to rank 30, great. Just enjoy this game. And so I am going to, like I said, I'm going to put my infinite match at the end if you want to watch it. If you stayed this long, thank you. I've just been rambling. I highly doubt anyone stayed this long because this video is probably 20 minutes long at this point. But yeah, like I said, give me a follow on Twitch if you want. Get a notification when I go live, have some infinite play, and just have a good time. So yeah, I will catch you guys next time. Are you good enough? What pool decks can you pool decks deck pool? You jump off the pool deck into the pool. We've talked about, do you have the time decline? Do you have the goods? Do you have the good? How many times am I gonna have to do this bit?